Hello. I know I posted a year and a half ago saying Tarot of the Week and then was not seen again. But I have been getting kind of the desire to just do more like spur of the moment card pulls for the collective. Hello, collective. Actually, it's probably more going to be like hello, maybe three people. Um, and even though I think it can be kind of, I don't know if manipulative is the word, but like I don't love when like tarot readers put every video like this video was meant to find you, but like and it's getting like thousands of views. I'm like, I mean, period. Like, not that I even disagree with it, but it's just like I don't love that in the title or like making people think that. But if you are one of the 5 people who may see this video, hello, this video is for you. Congrats, you got a free reading. It's just one card anyway. I just wanted to come on here and talk about that, and I'm very happy to do so because the card we pulled is one of the most, definitely one of the most beautiful cards. Like if we're talking like literal beauty, like a beautiful physical sensual experience. And I already showed it on the screen, but it's the Queen of Pentacles. Hey girl. And the Queen of Pentacles is kind of one of the faces of the goddess in the tarot. Like we have through the Queen cards, and in my deck the pages are princesses, so I consider that part of it. And then some of the major arcana cards all illustrate this goddess that the tarot is telling us about. And we can kind of think of it as like, you know, with the relationship between what I kind of look at as like the more overarching faces of the goddess in the major arcana cards. So especially the Empress, obviously, but also Lust and the Star and the High Priestess. There we go. I was like, I know there's one more. The one I actually have a tattoo of. Don't mind that. The relationship between those cards and the minor arcana cards are kind of like how we have like the Virgin Mary, right? Everybody knows the Virgin Mary, but really there's like thousands of Virgin Marys, and they're all the same figure, but it's different faces and aspects of her that speak to different people's, you know, cultures and needs and just different aspects of life and, you know, realm of the goddess that we can tune into with her different faces. And the Queen of Discs is one of them. And especially like talking about that relationship between the majors and the minors, I really see the Queen of Discs as kind of like a lady in waiting to the Empress card, you could say. Because the Empress is kind of, we talk about her like she's, every time I see it, I think of the Kate Bush song, The Sensual World, where it's like, yes, like, you know, all the beautiful things about being alive on this planet, right? Like how we can, you know, bite into a juicy peach and like feel the juice and the sweetness, but then, you know, the Empress can take that peach and turn it into like a delicious pie, or she can preserve it and make it into a jam that, you know, her family can eat in the middle of a snowstorm 2 years later. And she might even know like some special remedy to use the pit for. That gives very Queen of Pentacles to me, that part, the medical part. Maybe that's her peach pit right there. But either way, like with the Queen of Pentacles, we're thinking about all these aspects of really just like sensuality and material life, and kind of the contrast in the suit of Earth and the nature of Earth and materiality of transformation, right? Like everything changes, everything is gonna go away someday, right? Like even the sun is gonna blow up, and like Earth is at some point not gonna be around, or, you know, from dust you come, to dust you will return, right? That is kind of one of the slogans of the suit of Earth. And at the same time, we sort of paradoxically see in tarot that it has a lot to do with like building structure, solid structure, and investing in things that you can rely on in the long term, and yeah, building things with fixity and permanence and making like real change, right? And despite the fact that, everything's going to crumble one day. Um, and the Queen of Discs, especially, I think, is sort of emotionally the most in this um, paradox of like knowing like life on Earth is fucking hard, right? Like we're all gonna die someday, but also the dishes still need to get done. And she is like that really simple aspect of like life is change on Earth, right? And in the Suit of Pentacles, like I said, discs, we see this process of, like I said, building something solid, of building something that can benefit the whole community or like be a really reliable structure. And even if that's just in our own lives, like how do we build our lives to be truly like satisfying to us? Like how can we live in abundance, as cheesy as that is, like truly? And how can we create a routine that can build something for us, make small changes to change our lives as a whole, right? And the Queen of Discs is someone who's kind of mastered this process. I love how she's in the desert, because we can kind of think of the desert as like illustrating that paradox of like, it's sort of the most earthy place you can get, right? Because it seems so infinite, like when you're there, like almost kind of primitive is the word I want to say, in the sense that like in the desert you can picture like a fucking dinosaur walking by sometimes. But at the same time, it kind of could also look like the closest to total destruction, right? Like it's been reduced to dust. It's been reduced to things in their most simple, stark forms, right? And if we see the entire world like looking like an arid desert, we can assume like, oh shit, like we're getting close to the end. And I think a lot of my tarot readings usually end up going into some like spiritual spiral, because I think ultimately that is what a lot of the cards are kind of pointing us to and walking us to. But in particular, the Queen of Discs, I think, does have like a huge relationship to spiritual practice specifically, and we can kind of see that through that desert imagery, right? Like we think of the desert as like a spiritual metaphor where people go to kind of be reduced of all of the extraneous things and grapple with like the harshest, starkest aspects of life. And she's someone who, the Queen of Pentacles, she's kind of someone who can like do anything, right? Like when there's a leaky sink, like she's going in there with her wrench underneath. But it's not like the Knight of Pentacles, where when she's down there, she's like figuring out what to do through trial and error and like fucking things up a little bit and, having wins and learning from it. Like she just gets in there and already knows what to do because she's been through that already. And we can see her like at the Oasis in the middle of the desert, right? So she's someone who's like, if we're going back to spirituality, like I think there's a lot about meditation and things like that in this card, of like going into a space in yourself where you're reducing all of those things to the simplest, most intrinsic parts of your experience on Earth. And ultimately, like by doing that more and more, you learn how to train your brain to be in like that state of simplicity and peace. And going back to that idea of like this paradox in the Suit of Earth of like, we're all gonna die, but we still have to do the dishes. I think so much of spirituality, like people do go to it because you're dealing with like, there's so many crazy existential things that we have to deal with just being alive, and also just the hardness of being alive. But then we do have to just like keep going about our day and keep going to work and keep doing the things we need to do, and feeding our animals and taking care of the leaky faucet and stuff. So she's kind of truly like taking control of mastering her experience in the emotional world. I think ultimately too to make it enjoyable, for her to be living in this state of peace and abundance. We can think of again with the Suit of Pentacles, and it's less like the next card, the King of Discs, of like, what's my legacy? Like, how am I gonna create something that's gonna provide for people after I'm gone, right? Like the King of Pentacles is kind of that moment of like, you're like the world's ending, like ultimately, right? Not in like a scary way, but just in the facts of life way. Like the Queen of Discs isn't really that existential about it. It's more just like, how can I find peace and happiness in my own life? Despite the fact that life is hard, right? And it's through working on what you love and creating like a discipline and attending to it like with love, like your whole life, right? She's up on this mountain like looking down at her landscape, like she knows every detail about it, right? So when something's a little off, she immediately identifies it, and because she has this wisdom, she can just address it, right? But that's part of her stark or harsh nature that I think kind of connects her to the Queen of Swords, her inverse, a little bit. And if you meet a Capricorn or a Queen of Discs, there's a woman I think of kind of as an archetypal Queen of Discs in my life who I knew and I worked with when I was like 15. She was this crazy artist, and I helped her. I was in like a puppet show that she did. She was a puppeteer, and it was all folk tales relating to like deaths, and it was very beautiful and not like sad or scary. It was like, the symbol of the moth went through this whole thing, and a lot about like making peace and seeing beauty in death. I think she was Guatemalan. I think that was what the folk tales were. But the puppets themselves were made out of like scraps of old lace and velvet that she found like at antique stores and thrift stores, and old tablecloths, and the puppet heads were like bird skulls that she found, which all of this is very Queen of Pentacles to me, like using these things that have already been kind of like reduced or used or worn down a little bit, and then kind of like reducing them a little more, refining them a little more, and then creating something really beautiful and valuable and part of a larger project that you're working on. But this woman was I remember it was kind of like an adjustment when I first met her, because I'm like very bubbly, like, we should all just be nice, ha ha ha. And she was very like, Capricorn CEO, like boss bitch energy, like the same energy that men get like praised for all the time, or not even necessarily praised for, but just people don't react to it the same way. But she was very like stern and no nonsense, and if things were wrong, she would like let us know, right? And it's not because she was like, you're a fucking idiot. It's because like she had her vision, and she knew like, no one else is gonna make the change if she doesn't go in and like do it herself, right? And also like this reality of knowing like when you're in this position of like kind of being the director of this big project, right? Like you do kind of have to be like no nonsense. Like you can't like cuddle other people's egos, I guess, when you're working, like when it's starting to affect your project. And so they can come out with this very harsh sort of nature, but that's like because they know there's a lot that needs to be done, there's a lot that can go wrong, and we don't have time for like niceties, right? And it's not out of a mean way, it's just out of they're more committed to the vision of what they're working on versus like, oh, let's just have like a lovey-dovey fun time. And that doesn't mean that they're not caring about other people. Like ultimately they're doing everything with the benefit of their community in mind, right? And to provide for other people. And even if they're the type of Queen of Discs who's committed to creating like a beautiful, enjoyable life, and like her project is having a beautiful home and being the best cook and like things like that, like that is like a lot of the times those people are the most like just being around them, like you experience like the benefits of that. Like that's the person who like every time you see them you leave with like a snack and like a book recommendation, and like she also gave you the book so you don't even have to go buy it, and she doesn't care if you give it back. Like it's that kind of vibe, right? and they're not necessarily going to be the most like lovey-dovey, but it's love in that kind of way, right? And I think it's really interesting to think about the Queen of Pentacles as like labor, I guess, as an expression of love. And I don't mean that in like a clocking into your 9 to 5 kind of way, but like doing the work to make your life like as beautiful and peaceful and meaningful and fulfilling and stable. That's a big one. All of that is a labor, right? And that whole practice of like surveying the things that you're experiencing and figuring out like, okay, what do I need to do to get where I want to go? Like, where's the leak that I need to go in and fix? And it's not scary or like that intense because you can handle it, right? Especially like emotionally, right? Because all of this, I think too, is building like emotional peace and enjoying life ultimately, like making those structures so you can kind of just flow and do your thing. And there's something like kind of animalistic about the Queen of Discs in the sense that she's so instinctive. I don't even necessarily want to say intuitive, just instinctive. It's like that, again, like she's not having to figure things out, like she just knows. Like she's not the amateur gardener who's like, oh, I've never seen this pest before, oh, I use this fertilizer and it all my leaves are brown. She's like the old lady you see in front of her house every day, like with the overalls, the rubber gloves, the boots. Like you don't even know what her face looks like because you only ever see her just like hunching over, digging in the dirt, like, and you know she's like picking all the fruits and turning them into amazing pies. And maybe if you like help her out a little bit, you can like get some of that delicious pie. But also, it's just like she doesn't have to try. Like she just wakes up every morning and goes there and does it. And yeah, just being in that beautiful flow ultimately of life as a whole, right? And yeah, even though it takes like some harshness and hard work. So yeah, I'm gonna cut it short. You know, the Queen of Discs is not one to be very flowery with her words. She'd more likely just look at a flower. So, yeah. Bye. Hope this was helpful.